and I appreciate the fact that you make time to come on these calls on a weekly basis. Those that weren't on any of our calls previously, just please remain on mute unless you have a question, in which case please use the chat function at the bottom of the screen. We hope to be able to open up for questions to our panel today, probably 10 or 15 minutes before the end of the call. As I say, we'll record it so that we can actually then share it with people who couldn't make today's call, and we'll put it on our catch-up channel on YouTube. So, where are we? Actually, we've got some good news this week, haven't we? I mean, after weeks and weeks and weeks of pretty rotten news, we're all, I guess, celebrating the fact that it may well be in the very near future, in the not too distant future at least, a vaccine available, and that hopefully by, I'm guessing by the second quarter of next year, we may be back up to normal. Certainly, we're beginning to plan our events for next year and hoping to reinstate some of our physical events in Q2, and we'll be out with those dates in the next couple of weeks. The other good news is that we have potentially a new president, who knows? But hopefully between now and the 37 shopping days that are left until Christmas, there'll be confirmation that there is a new president in North America, and hopefully the markets will react positively to that situation as they have done already. And lockdown 2.0 is very much in full swing. So you're all living embodiment of that at the moment. I'm actually in, I'm not shielding, but I'm in, I've just got back from a trip overseas, so I'm actually having to spend the next 14 days at home. So if you want to get hold of me, it's never been a better time. I'll be around over the next couple of weeks. So this week, we're going to hear from 3 very successful agencies, agency leaders, on how they manage their teams in lockdown and what lessons they've learned as we slip into recession. There's a whole host of different activities and events that we've had over the last few weeks, and we've heard some very interesting people. I'm particularly pleased today to welcome Jon Bailey, who's the Chief Operating Officer of what is now known as the Precision Proco Group. Jon brings over 20 years of experience in management and cutting-edge digital print technology, and has a passion for exquisite customer service. Jon is dedicated to keeping print both relevant and growing, and he's a living embodiment that print is far from dead. His passion for print, combined with his approach to leadership culture and customer engagement, has rocketed Proco to the top of the list when it comes to innovation in commercial print. And as the youngest person to ever be awarded the accolade of outstanding contribution to the print industry by its federation, the BPIF, a double winner of the UK Print Company of the Year, Jon has created in Proco a forward-thinking marketing operation business that's considered to be one of the leaders in its space. As COO of the newly formed Precision Proco Group, along with ensuring the entire team is fired up and ready to deliver, Jon is spearheading the group's sales and marketing activity, which includes the exciting new print management initiative and global technology platforms. And he may well tell us about some of that today. Along with his role as COO, as chairman of the global board of Dscope, as well as being a full-time COO, Jon is a part-time husband and dad of 3, and an occasional adventurer. Not a lot of that happening at the moment, I imagine. Sammy Mansourpour is the founder of AgencyUK. He founded that business in 2008. AgencyUK is an award-winning digital-first integrated brands comms agency, get my teeth in, B2C and B2B, specialising in health and well-being, food and drink, medi-pharma and tech. They're well known for their brand and campaign effectiveness platform, which marries up with the WARC's meaningful difference with specific performance indicators. And for those that aren't familiar with the WARC's proposition and how they actually measure performance, it's worth having a look at their website. In addition to his responsibilities at Agency UK, Sammy is a shareholder in a number of D2C companies, including UK's largest independent food and drinks marketplace, Discover Delicious.Wales. He's an elected member of the CBI board and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So welcome to you. And Kathryn Strachan is a managing director of Copyhouse Limited, a content marketing agency specializing in technology and fintech content. Kathryn launched Copyhouse in April 2019 after working in-house at digital agencies and then successfully running a freelance copyright business. Her copyright business quickly transformed into a content marketing agency with a 7-person team and globally renowned clients, including Travelex, Senior, and Lloyds Bank. Kathryn's unique approach to employee management has allowed her to build a positive workplace culture and thriving organization, And as the manager director, she oversees the company's daily operations and keeps the team working hard towards their shared goal of creating a world where deep tech isn't scary or confusing. When she's not managing the team, she runs several SEO and copywriting workshops and training courses, including the acclaimed 11-week Ultimate SEO and Copywriting course. And very interestingly, and congratulations to you, Kathryn, you've been shortlisted for Small Business of the Year in Edinburgh for 2020. So we wait to hear the results of that. So congratulations. So if I can make sure that all of our panel are off mute. Lots of questions are coming from people, so thank you for that. What I want to start with, if I may, let's go to Jon. 2020 has, in many respects, been a kind of an unprecedented year for management. I'd be really interested in what your experience has been and how you've had to adapt and how you've actually thrived in this period.
So no pressure after that intro, right?
No pressure at all.
He sounds quite good in, like, you know, but see if it matches. It's been an interesting one, hasn't it? I mean, we all know that. You'll notice I'm in the office. I've actually been here right through. We have critical production status for document management services for certain clients. So even during the first lockdown, from day one, we've had to be in the factory producing and having to be getting through police cordons in Sheffield as we're coming down the parkway to work during the first instance and getting our staff on board. But it's been a really interesting one for us from initial shock factor and the whole 120 people on the Sheffield site, and at the same time as that, trying to go through a merger with 4 other sites, right through managing that transition of people going to work from home and then furloughing and then bringing them back. And then our product mix, some of our clients dropped 90%, whereas others multiplied by 10 times up, depending on the market. So we've had to kind of deal with this roller coaster of not needing people, needing more people, not having enough work on, having too much on, whilst trying to also bring together the 4 different brands to create the new group. So it's been an interesting period.
Sammy, can I pose the same question to you, if I
may? Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it has been strange. I think we're a full service integrated communications agency. So we do everything here from strategic planning on brands through to campaign planning, creative studio, and then technical development and deployment. So as you can imagine, the challenge is integrating those very different teams and those very different cultures within those teams. I think that we found the transition to remote working over this period fairly seamless because we all had the technology at our fingertips, and you know we deal a lot with clients all over the world, particularly in North America. So we're used to dealing with individuals and work streams remotely. I think what we hadn't anticipated were two things. The first was the effect on collaboration when it came to creative, and how important that is to what we do, and that nothing can really replace the face-to-face time that creative people, or in fact everybody in the agency, needs to bounce ideas around and actually come up with ideas. And to do that in Zoom almost makes it a formal experience, which takes, I think, some of the natural instinct out of it and some of the freedom of play. So that was the first thing. And the other thing that really impacted us, I think, was how much younger members of the team learn through osmosis. It's very difficult for them to develop as quickly as they would normally when they're not sat as part of a team, hearing, seeing, believing what's going on around them, and being able to ask questions of their peers on an ad hoc basis. And I think that has had an effect that we've tried to address, but equally, you know, that can be a little bit demotivating, I think.
Thank you. And Kathryn, if I just unmute you, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
Tell me, I mean, obviously you've got a different structure in your business, and I know you've always, whilst you have an office, you actually very much embrace a very flexible working policy. Can you tell us a little bit about that and actually how you've managed your team through this period?
Yeah, of course, of course. So, I mean, leading up to COVID, we always had a hybrid working model. So, most of the time the team would come in, a couple days a week, but also work from home a couple days a week. So they're well set up, when COVID happened to go into, working fully remotely. And, during, it feels like forever now. But during COVID, we've continued to grow. And so we've actually added 4 people to the team during that period. And that was probably one of the hardest or most challenging things, because like the team had transitioned very seamlessly, but adding a whole new person to the team during COVID is a totally different challenge. I mean, and it's weird to hire people who you've never met in person. And, had a couple of people on the team who we worked together for months before we could actually meet in person for the first time. So it's about creating, a workplace culture in a completely digital world. So, there's several things that I did during COVID to make sure that we had really strong communication, make sure that, the team not only felt safe, but also, weren't going into the weekend with concerns about, whether or not their job would be there on Monday. So we managed to hold the team together. While like most of us, we lost work in the early days, we brought it all back so we didn't have to furlough anybody, and put some really great systems in place so that we had really strong communication and a great remote working culture. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting and challenging period, but I'm proud of, where we are today.
And I picked that point up with you, Jon. I mean, talking about culture, effectively you've merged, was it 4 businesses into one in the period? How's that affected your culture? How are you kind of develop culture when you obviously, in your case, obviously you've got quite a lot of people in the office, but equally you've got lots of people that aren't.
Yeah, so we actually have I've gone from being responsible for 120 people to 350 during COVID. So I've not met probably 100 of those guys. So it's trying to meet everyone. So we actually have been working on this merger for probably 2 years. And a week before lockdown was our first leadership meeting when we announced it to the team. So we gathered the leadership team from each of the different companies into a hotel, announced what we were doing, agreed the plan, everybody bought into that plan, and then literally 1 week later we were in lockdown and we weren't able to migrate, but we'd already set the hair going, so we were fully committed. So we've just had to be really clear, really crystal clear, really open with what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. We kind of over engineered the communication and the news and how we were going to break it and how we were going to talk to everybody about it, just to make sure everybody's completely aligned. But what's been quite interesting is because of the trauma that we were all going through, and let's be honest, it's been a trauma trying to survive during COVID, especially at the very start. We just made sure as a leadership team, we communicated a lot. So we were on weekly calls to progress the move. And what we've seen is a lot of the work that we were expecting to be still doing now has already been done. And weirdly, it's helped us speed up our integration. It's amazing what a challenge can do to bring everybody together, because actually we started the merger and started this transition with a real common goal, which was survival. Right? So everybody was in the same boat, everybody wanted to survive, and everybody could see that actually this merger was a strategic growth plan. It was never about reduction or making people uneasy about their jobs. It was quite the opposite. It was actually a growth play. And so it's been able to give everybody that common united front. I think as well, we talk a lot about giving people the scale. If you're trying to do real innovation and real development, it's expensive and it's tricky to do that on your own, right? So scale is really important, especially in our game. And I also think it's important to know what you don't know. And that's always been one of our things with the business in Sheffield, that we've never been afraid to say when we don't know something and we must learn. And so I think what everyone's been able to see within each of the groups is that coming together, we're scaling our knowledge as well, because we all have different skill sets. And so people have really accepted it, taken it on board, been really aligned with it and focused. You know that yourself, Stephen, you know that in Sheffield, we've always run from a business, a real forward-thinking culture, from engagement from staff and engagement from the team, and letting the team lead the business and drive it. And everybody in the company has a 90-day plan, a 30, 60, 90-day plan, which is visible to everybody, and it filters up. And my 90-day plan is on the wall, so everyone can hold me accountable. And we have all of our board meetings open in the canteen for people to listen to and all that kind of stuff. So we've also rolled that way of working into the other groups. So we've rolled our way of communicating and our open nature into all these other areas, which are at different levels of open comms. So that's been a bit of a shock for some people. But I think we've just had to be really open, really honest, really communicative, and keep people engaged.
So effectively, you had a culture of this combined organisation, because it strikes me that to actually change the culture of the organisations that have actually been brought together, and to influence the management of those businesses to accept this open approach that you are so famous for, that must have been quite a challenge.
It is a challenge, but the merger was done on the back of a foundation of real respect, right? So all the businesses have mutual respect for each other as businesses, but also as individuals in the leadership team. We've worked together for a long time in different guises. But also it's built on a real foundation of a good culture and well-run businesses. I wouldn't have looked to bring my company together with other companies if I didn't feel that ethically and culturally they were aligned already. Clearly, everyone has different levels of execution, and you know, mine at Sheffield was really at the forefront of what we were trying to do. So actually, we start from a very good place, because the teams are engaged and the teams are used to change, and they've been in an industry that has gone through radical changes. And we've been talking, it's interesting, everyone's talking about the world changing. So in our industry, so our customers have changed to a new consumer-based customer, and a more demanding customer, and a more on-demand customer. Our products are being always challenged by online and the online environment and modern technology. The high street is changing rapidly, and is completely being thrown upside down. And I've been saying that for the last 10 years in our industry, right? So actually, this little hiccup of COVID and a little bit of Brexit, and now this little recession that's coming along, has only done what we've been saying it's going to do for the last 10 years in our game. So actually, from a people perspective, it kind of allowed everyone to see that what we have been saying is right. Yes, this has speeded us up probably 5 years, but actually, the strategy of the business has always been to be in a position to benefit from the migration of print to e-commerce, migration of high street online, and to bring the physical and the digital world together. So we're in a quite good place, to be fair, to allow people to understand what we were doing.
Thank you. Sammy, got one for you, if I may. I'll just unmute you. There you are. Tell me, I mean, do you feel like creativity has suffered through this period? I mean, you're sitting in the office today. I suspect, given the echo, you're probably on your own. I don't know. But what are you doing to try and obviously continue to promote and drive creativity in your organisation?
I'm not actually on my own today. There are a few people from the creative team in today. Do I think it's suffered? I think it's been less efficient. The quality of the work has still been good. It's just taken a little bit longer to get to where we would normally have got to. I think that we probably got ahead with being able to put in mechanisms and processes, and we actually refurbished our office and turned it into a drop-in centre to try and encourage those sorts of client-facing meetings where everyone can get together in a socially distanced fashion, do the work that they need to do, and then sort of depart. But with a lot of our clients, they were unable to either get here or fly here because of the travel ban. So that's probably one that's going to kick in more for the future. So I don't think the output has suffered, but I think the efficiency in getting to that output has definitely been a bit more bumpy. I don't believe that offices or office culture is going to disappear. I think it's just going to be readdressed and rebalanced. We are going to probably find people are working from home 2 or 3 days a week going forward, and they'll be spending 2 or 3 days planning their meetings and being in the office. In fact, I think probably the biggest impact has been with clients generally. Some sectors, as with I'm sure with everybody else, some sectors have absolutely boomed and accelerated. Our direct-to-consumer, online direct-to-consumer portfolio has just exploded. Their issues have been around supply chain, not around demand. But some of our other clients have definitely suffered. So Boomtown Festivals, for example, has really struggled for obvious reasons. And I think the problem that we've had is that sometimes the work streams we've been working on have been still in play, but the individuals that we need to interact with in our clients' organizations have either had to pick up slack elsewhere in their business, so they've had less time to be able to devote to that work stream that we're deploying, or they, in the earlier parts of the year, some were furloughed, so we had no contact, and that's been the problem. When you've got no champion at the client end, you can't really manage yourselves through an ongoing work stream, and that's particularly difficult on the larger retainer-based clients where we've got a real-time agile schedule of work that's going through each week, which is quite critical to their business.
I can understand that. I mean, from your point of view, Kathryn, I mean, creativity, you are, by definition, with the work you do, it doesn't matter where you work or where you work from. You said at the beginning of this panel session that you have always been a flexible employer. From the clients and the agencies that you speak to, do you think there's a real danger that as we come out of COVID, that we could flick the switch back the opposite way and move from what's become quite a grown-up, trusting environment where employers trust their employees to do their jobs and do it well, back to an environment where we all go back into offices on a 5-day-a-week basis?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think, I hope that, after 8-9 months of trusting employees to get on with work, that will be something that clients and agencies continue to do going forward. Most employers have hopefully already demonstrated their merit and their ability to be trusted. So I'm hoping that, like, the agency world in general has learned how to be a bit more trusting of employees and allow them the flexibility, and have actually, our approach is actually more output based. So rather than, having employees report at a specific time or even to a specific location, what I care about the most is the quality of the work and that it's done on time, and to a really high standard. And, if that means that a copywriter wants to work at 2 a.m. from Australia, then, go for it. And, that's allowed us to retain some really talented team members. We have one team member who's been with me the longest, who is a bit of a digital nomad. So when I first met him, after about 6 months of him being on the team and, training him and really investing in his development, he wanted to go take a gap year in Australia. And a lot of people would have said, well, okay, well, like, we'll see you when you get back, or, dismissed him essentially. And I said, okay, like, let's see if we can make this work. So went out on a limb for him and he returned the favor. So, he was working, he'd start late and work until, the early hours of the morning in Australia so that he could be on our time. And he is back in the UK now, and I actually just promoted him last month. So he's a really valuable member of our team that I feel like I would have lost if I didn't support that kind of flexible working. So, I mean, I hope that agency owners and employers in general have seen the benefits of supporting such a flexible method, and that will continue. I mean, I don't think it's the end of offices, definitely not. I mean, it's nice to see everybody, but what that means will vary depending on the company. So for us, we open the office 1 day a week, and people can come if they want to, or not if they're otherwise located. But it's just a time and a space to come together and get out of your apartment or your flat, and break away from routines and have some FaceTime and get that meaningful face-to-face relationships. I mean, I think from a client perspective, we've seen an improvement in some of our client relationships, especially so probably half of our clients are based in Europe. And some of them we've worked with for years and have never met. But COVID has kind of eased those boundaries even more. So, we can just jump on a 10-15-minute Zoom call with our clients in Europe to catch up that week. And, they get the same level of service as like a client here. Before COVID, it used to be more face-to-face meetings with clients who are based in the UK. And I was traveling a lot. Our account manager was traveling a lot. And now, I can be home and I can be with my daughter and I can do everything I need to do. And I can continue to like have the same high quality relationships with clients in Europe as I do the ones that are just located down the road. So it's been kind of amazing from that perspective.
Thank you. Back to you, Jon, mate. I mean, one of the reasons we all work ultimately is because we genuinely enjoy the interaction and the interplay of working with colleagues and so on. And particularly at this time of year, when traditionally as we move in kind of to the Christmas period, work should be fun. It should be a place that you go to where you actually have some fun. And actually, given that you spend a third of your life in work, don't you want to be doing something you really, really enjoy? I think in the first lockdown, all of us adapted very quickly, and all of us put on lots of things socially with our teams and with our clients. And we didn't, kind of just get into this drudgery we're now in at the moment of spending 8 or 9 hours a day on Zoom calls. How do we actually put fun back into business when we actually can't be together?
I think it's interesting. I mean, I talk about the initial lockdown. The bit that is in my head, and in life when you have some certain trauma, and it doesn't matter where you are at any point in your life after that moment, whether it's a month or 10 years, and you talk about something and you talk about it and you start to well up and it really gets you and your heckles go out and you can't understand why, because in your head you've got over it. Well, I'm a little bit like that with the initial COVID shock. And what I can't get out of my head is the look of the people's faces when we had our meeting to tell them that we were going to have to send them home and furlough and shut down, and no one knew what was happening. Because when you see that many people looking at you, relying on everything you're about to say, that for me was a real humbling experience. It really sort of burnt into my brain and I can't get that out of my head. And so that's really laid a foundation for me since that moment to make sure that we do ensure that we have fun. And that we do make sure that when people are here, they want to be here. And whether they're at home or they're here, they're engaged with what we're trying to do. And we appreciate and respect the stress that it puts people under from an employee perspective, normally and during this process. So that's been a real sort of key one for me. So we've always been committed, but more so than ever, trying to create an environment where people can play. Because I think when people are free to play, that's when the creativity comes. And when they're free to play, that's when the optimism is there. And optimism for me is a striker scoring goals. Once people are optimistic and they feel that bounce, then that's when the company gets momentum and when things really start to move, both sales-wise, growth-wise, idea-wise, people-wise. And everyone wants their life to be better. That's human nature, right? And I think we have a role to play in making people's lives better. Interestingly, when you talk about the office, what we saw was the amount of people asking to come back to the office. So as soon as the first lockdown was over, people said, can I come back in? And people were really trying to come back in. Now, what we saw is on our site in Sheffield, there was a real appetite to get back into the office. And in some of the other sites, it was a lot more subdued and they kept home working a lot more forced home working. And if you then analyze the numbers and analyze the response to coming out of the first lockdown and the sales growth and the return to normal business, the Sheffield site outperformed all the other sites by about 3-1. And I do put that down to the people and the culture wanting to get back into normality, wanting to feel optimistic and wanting to take things forward. So I think that demonstrates the importance of making it like a good environment. The other thing just to say on this call is that I bug all of my staff working from home so I can see what they're doing. I don't really, but I've got 2 on the call, so I wanted them to hear me say.
I saw Chris.
Yeah, I don't want them to think I've got it easy. But, and also from a fun perspective and about the working from home, we try to apply the same to our customers. We didn't furlough any customer facing people, like so Chris and people like that. The people who were responsible for our customer liaison were kept on. And the reason for that is I thought that our customers were going to have a difficult enough time. So they might not be trading with us, but they still need our help. So we used it as an engagement time. So we now have about 4 mother-in-laws who are our biggest fans, who have heard coffee mornings that we've had with people and then they brought their family in. And so we now have wider family who are not related to us as a business at all being big fans of the business because they joined our virtual coffee mornings throughout the first thing and things like that. So we've tried to have a bit of fun with it where we can and try to keep it engaged. And I think that's meant that the team that are remote do feel part of it, are still having fun and are still being positive. And I think that's really key.
And does that kind of cascade down across the organisation? Because obviously the role of leadership in a situation like this is to continue to obviously keep morale high and to continue to actually make sure that everybody is okay. You can't get around 350 people. So how's that working now? And are you still carrying on with those coffee mornings? And
we're still carrying on with those coffee mornings. We're still doing a lot of client engagement piece. Believe it or not, I do get around the 350 people. I split my time in pretty much equally, 50% with people with the team and 50% with customers. And then the more mundane stuff and the emails and stuff gets put to the back. The team support very well throughout, but I spend, like I say, 50% of my time with the Chris Malloys and the customers of the world, and 50% of the time with the actual people in the shop floor, getting around the 350 people. Because I don't think there's anything more important than making sure the internal and the people and the team who are going to make it for you are happy, and the customers who are spending their money with you are happy. So it is about putting the miles in, whether that's virtual miles or real miles. It is about being visible. And I think it's about how you prioritize people's engagement and people's buy into what you're trying to do. If you think it's the most important thing, then you'll spend more time with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree on all those points. Sammy, I mean, is Christmas cancelled at AgencyUK?
I don't think our people here would allow Christmas to be cancelled, to be honest. They're fairly social creatures. No, I think quite a few of them are friends anyway, and they've got very close working relationships, and they've worked together for many years and come up through the ranks together as well. So they automatically have that kind of extracurricular bond. We haven't been able to do many sort of work events. We normally fly everyone away for Christmas, and we'll do a sort of long weekend or something in a European city or North African city or something. We've done that for a few years. We won't be doing that, but outside of lockdown, obviously, we've had quite a few gatherings. We've had an annual performance meeting with everyone in attendance, and we've kept communications pretty open, and we've also staged forums for different members of the team, particularly junior members of the team, to share the work that they've been doing, and particularly some of the outcomes from the training that they've been doing as well. And that's helped to keep them involved, but it's also kept them open with a dialogue and sharing knowledge and sharing information, which has been quite important. I think we've got quite a family feel business. It's owned by myself and my partner Amy, so it's automatically got that kind of close-knit feel to it, and I think that helps. But as Jon said, we've still had to be in contact with everybody on a regular basis, virtually on a daily basis. You've got to keep spirits up. We've got to remember that a lot of people are working from flats, or they don't have outside space, or they're working from an environment with really young kids. These things are quite, these are tough environments to work in when you've got a high pressure job to do as well. And so we've been quite mindful that it hasn't been as easy for everyone as it has for others. But I think we've done an okay job. I mean, I think we'd leave it to our people to comment on that. But business is growing, and really, I think that's probably the best way to take the temperature of morale. My experience generally over the last 20 odd years is that when business dips, morale dips. people are happier when they're busy. And I think that's been true over this period more than ever.
No, I totally agree on that point. Kathryn, I mean, what's been for you, I guess, the most surprising development in 2020 for your company specifically?
I don't know. I guess it depends on when you would have asked me that, because I mean, very much like John, I found it really traumatic as well. So, that we survived and continued to grow, I would have said during the early days of COVID. But I think one of the things, especially for us, I mean, we work in the tech sector. So something that I'm really excited about is, the digital transformation it's allowed a lot of companies to achieve and do. And, it's opened the door for really innovative high-tech solutions in very traditional industries, and that's been really exciting for us to watch and to be a part of as well. I mean, surprising, there's not much that really surprises me. I'm quite a steady, ongoing person, but yeah, I mean, we're in a really positive place now, and we have some fun events coming up. So going back to your question about whether or not Christmas is canceled, I was just thinking about a couple of events we have. So we're going to be doing a Secret Santa with the team, and everybody's got their names. We'll do like a present circle on Zoom, and have a little staff party. So that will be fun. And then we're going to do a wine and cheese tasting for all of our clients, and have like just a social with some icebreaker games, and send wine and cheese packages out to people. So, I mean, I guess one of the things with Lockdown 2.0 is that, the options for cultural fun engagement has increased, because companies, weren't really prepared. They weren't set up for this during the first lockdown, where now all these companies have come out of the woodworks that do. I know Nathan Lomax at Quickfire Digital did a chocolate tasting recently. I know people who are doing cocktail making classes. You can even hire a magician. There's so much fun stuff you can now do online that wasn't really available during the first one, because companies weren't set up for it. So now you can order, a Christmas hamper of wine and cheese out to all your clients, or, you can host really fun virtual events. There's a lot of options out there if you're looking to do stuff online.
That's some really good ideas there, and I think it's keeping that momentum going and keeping that energy, and actually focusing on the softer side of management is particularly important. I kind of like to know from all of you really, and there's been things that you have been really proud of in this whole period, and there'll be things that actually perhaps in hindsight you think actually I could have done better. Maybe if I'd have given it a little bit more thought, or frankly I made admit to it. We made a few cock-ups along the way. Who's happy to take this one? Anyone?
How long have you got? I've made plenty of cock-ups along the way over the last 6 to 8 months. I've made even more over the last 25 years, so I'm not too worried about making cock-ups, to be honest with you. I think the one for me that really stands out is I forget sometimes how we as business leaders and people who are responsible for others, how our reaction and then our appearance and our presence can impact the team, and how quickly we can take people down with us, and how sometimes we're not allowed to show that. I know that's maybe seen as not being too weak, but sometimes it's very tricky. I'm quite an emotional person, as I told you earlier, that the moment of clarity of explaining to people and seeing all those faces was an incredibly emotional time for me. And I think what I did wrong is I forgot what I needed to do at that point, and I actually let it affect me. And I had a couple of weeks where I really didn't know what to do. And I don't think I did a good job in kind of displaying that confidence. So I think what I would do different is I'd have more confidence in our ability to work through stuff like this, and my ability to work through stuff like this. Because it took me, I literally froze for probably 2 weeks, went into a little bit of meltdown, didn't quite know what to do, didn't really have any answers for anybody. And it was interesting. It was funny. I was actually at home. This is a random story, but I was actually at home after about 2 weeks, and I was particularly miserable, worrying about the business, not sure what was going to happen, and could see everything flashing before my eyes, and couldn't really see where to go. And I was watching Ozark, right, if anyone's seen it at the time. So I got into Ozark, And clearly this is money laundering, right? I'm not into money laundering, but there was some certain similarities with the current stresses he was under. And there was one particular scene where he was under obscene amount of pressure and couldn't figure out how to get past it. In the morning, the kids came into the room and said, "Where's Dad?" And his wife said, "Oh, he's gone to get ahead of the problem." And I literally, as I was watching that episode, thought, that's exactly what I need to do. I've got to get ahead of this. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and get stuck in. So I literally went to work early the next morning, left a note saying I've gone to get ahead of myself and to get ahead of it. Boom. And I went into work. And from that day on, we turned it around and everything we had a plan. People suddenly started to get buoyant again. We were able to shape it. So it was quite interesting, but I would definitely have more confidence in our ability, but also I'd be more aware of the negative impact behaviours have.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no, I think, thank you for being so brutally honest there. It is really helpful because I think a lot of people on this call will relate to that and understand that feeling of really not knowing what to do or whatever. I mean, one of the, I always say, Stone, is that the great benefit of being part of a network is to actually get the opportunities to ask other leaders and to pick on their brains and to actually ask them what they would do and speak to people, because actually often if you can share those feelings and share the situation, I mean, we are literally all in this one together, aren't we? We're all having to adapt and change the ways in which we communicate and run our businesses and the services that we deliver to our clients. It's challenging for everyone. I guess, you shouldn't be too self-critical. I mean, there was a slide last week that Nathan put up. He did one of our 5 p.m. classes and the sessions rather, and it's brilliant. He did, as always, had loads of energy. At the end of it, I think his last slide was, excuse my French, don't be so fucking hard on yourself, and that's the truth. You can't, because actually the success of your business is determined by everyone having that kind of positive mindset and being able to actually react positively. But equally too, we're all human. So, at times like this, you've really got to start to, assimilate what needs to be done and then create that focus. I mean, go into 2021. I mean, and Dave Price has just put up a question. What's your prediction for the business and also for the industry at a wider level? I mean, I'll give that one to Sammy first of all, whilst Kathryn and Jon can collect their thoughts. So, I mean, from a personal point of view for your business, but equally too, how do you see the industry going?
I think as an industry, we're pretty resilient, actually, and we're very adaptive. So I'm looking at 2021 pretty positively. I mean, we have achieved a level of growth in 2020, which going back to March, I wouldn't have ever thought that was possible. I firmly believe that opportunity exists in these sorts of times. It's just harder to find, so it just takes more digging to actually get it out of the ground. But 2021, the noises from the industry in general, my colleagues who own and friends who own other agencies, they all seem to be pretty optimistic. And I think the digital transformation that's accelerated during this period, and Kathryn mentioned it, where clients, particularly that might have been a little bit behind the curve, have suddenly been pushed forward. They've seen opportunities present themselves of where they probably haven't been taking advantage of some of the technologies and some of the methodologies of how digital transformation can actually impact performance in business. And so they're more open to it. And we've got conversations with some of our clients that are very traditional organizations that have always cited offline versus digital has always, been the preference, but that even with them, they're now talking very differently about how they engage with communities in social, how they grow their social portfolio, and really how they adopt digital as part of the business as usual activity, as opposed to a sort of spike and run approach throughout the year. So I think this is all a good thing if you're an agency that that delivers those sorts of services. And so yeah, I think it's looking good. I think with all of these things, you tend to see the weaker businesses either get eaten up or they go out of business, but they're weak businesses for a reason anyway. So the ones that you're left with tend to be the ones that have got a proper business, and are resilient. So I think we may even see a slightly smaller number of organisations around, but the ones that are left are going to grow and probably pick up people and talent that are left from the others anyway. So that would be my view. I'm not sure I think that's more opinion based and gut feel. This is what counts.
Kathryn, same question for you, if I may. You know, what's your view on the outlook for 2021, both for your business and more broadly?
Yeah, I mean, really positive. I tend to be positive even in the darkest days of COVID. You know, there's always an opportunity within every shitty situation. There's always, you know, something you can do and always a solution. We're very solution oriented. But I think we're in a really interesting phase of lockdown because like the first one was full of panic and anxiety and worry and concern and like all these really negative things that we all had to deal with. And now, you know, a lot of those negative emotions have subsided and a lot of businesses have realized that, you know, they weren't as impacted as they were going to be, or, you know, have found a way to pivot or to change or, you know, to even grab a hold of this opportunity, if we can dare call it that. And now we're at a stage where people are thinking more long-term, so are thinking about the future. So, you know, I'm having a lot of conversations at the moment, you know, planning, you know, 10, 12-month projects for next year. So people are now able, once again, to think long-term, where, you know, during the earlier days, it was really hard to see past like one day, and then it was really hard to see past 1 week, and then it was really hard to see past a month. And now people are, you know, able to see more long-term. So we've been able to have successful conversations around projects that will go over the long term. So I think that's really exciting. I mean, we're in a really exciting space as well, being technology focused. There's so much interesting stuff going on. And my marketing manager, actually, she thinks that once there's a vaccine in place, there might be a bit of euphoria and, you know, people might be super excited. And I've heard some similar things before from companies who've been operating, you know, during 2008, and then again during like the early days of Brexit, where, you know, this negative experience caused a backlog in the pipeline and of the available budget, and then once it kind of passed, it kind of opened up a lot of opportunities. And I think, you know, that's starting to happen. I know a lot of agencies who've had a really successful last 2 months, and I think that momentum is only going to continue as we go into 2021. So yeah, I'm pretty positive about it.
Thank you. And Jon, yourself?
So I think it's probably going to be a disaster, a nightmare, busy, stressful, disruptive, like the last 10. So I don't think we're going to expect anything different. And why should we, right? Because we've always been in the challenging market for a long time now. But the reality is, I think, you know, in all seriousness, I think Q1 is going to be tricky. I foresee getting busier in Q2, but there'll also be, from a client perspective, better. But I think there'll be a lot of people falling in Q2 when the money has to start being paid back. But a lot of people in our industry have borrowed. So I think that's going to be tricky for people to cope with. But I think it's going to be buoyant. And I think people are going to have to start powering out of it and spending out of it and being in the right position to exploit the next year. So I'm very positive actually about next year. In all seriousness, a guy, when I started business, a very wise man said to me, only ever start a business in a recession, because then when the boom time comes, you're in a great place. And if you survive a recession, then that's how you run your business. And that's how I've always run our business, to think we're in a difficult time and a difficult period. So bring on a recession is what I say, because the companies that are fleet of foot and those that are fast and those that are lean and those that have a vision actually are the ones that will survive. Those that do groups like this and the D-Scoop thing I'm on, and those that put themselves out there to learn from others, I think are the ones that are putting themselves in the best place to cope with that kind of environment. And it's the ones that are sat at home not wanting to learn or not seeing their weaknesses and not sharing things like on the chat that I'm reading here now. They're the ones that are going to struggle and are going to let it bite them. So stay ahead of it. I think from our specific point, there's four key areas that I think is very relevant in our industry, but I think it's relevant for everyone. So we talk about it in 4 things. So smart utilization. So moving into next year, how are you going to utilize all of your resource properly? Whether that's remote or in the office, whether that's client facing, whether that's production. How are you going to make sure you get the most value out of every element of your infrastructure, whether that's machines in our case or people? So smart utilization. We talk about smart automation, so making it easy to use and easy to choose. So we want to make it like we're the easiest person to do business with in whatever way we are, and make it really easy, whether you're online or offline, to choose to use us. Right, so really easy to use. So that simplicity piece, I think, is going to be really key next year, because people are going to want to be able to move really quick. And if you're in a position to be easy to choose and easy to use, then you're going to be the first choice of go-to company. I think the third piece is smart collaboration. And I think especially if you're a smaller agency or a smaller business, collaborating with the wider infrastructure is going to be critical, because people are going to want you to do all different types of stuff. That doesn't mean necessarily then having to invest in yourself, but to collaborate. And I mean smart collaboration, not just partnerships. That's about actually having integration with other agencies, integration with other skill sets, knowing where to go for the different things people need. The Pimento style of thing, I think, is more important than ever next year, which is why we're part of smart collaboration. And the final piece, I think next year people are going to want innovation, and that whole idea of products to surprise and delight people and actually taking new ideas out. One of the things that's happened during the lockdown is taking ideas to clients has become critically important, because everybody's frozen. And lots of people did not know, like me at the start, what to do. So taking those new ideas to people has proved to be very important during lockdown. And I think moving forward, as the world's changing quicker, the quicker it's changing. If we've advanced 5 years into e-commerce, our customers are 5 years behind. Us as agencies that can think 5 years in the future and give them the ideas quicker than anyone else, I think will be the ones that survive and the ones that actually grow and thrive for it. So that idea of products and innovation, I think, is a fourth piece.
Brilliant. Very good. Well, thank you very much indeed. It's a wonderful range of different ideas and ways to approach 2021. There's some very positive thoughts around that. One thing we haven't touched on today, and I'll mention it before I go on to sort of final notices, is that clearly there's a lot of smaller agencies and indeed one woman, one band consultancies on today's call. Running a consultancy is difficult at the best of times, particularly if you're running it on your own and it's your own business. You don't have those people you can actually turn to. You don't have employees to look in the eyes, as it were, and to engage. You've got to basically self-motivate and get yourself out every morning and thing. Do the three of you have any kind of tips for people who are in that position? Because I think we've probably got about 25% of our membership would be those sorts of individuals who are specialists in a given area and are consulting in those spaces. How do you remain positive and engaged and driving forward?
I mean, I can take it, because I actually started my career as a freelance copywriter. So I've been a one-man band before, and remember what it was like. And, there are definitely challenges, but, also some positive things about it, so one of my biggest concerns during all of COVID has been my team, because I knew that, I would probably be okay, I could always find work, but it was actually my people who I was most worried about. So in the darkest days, I was like, well, it'd be really nice to, just be me again. That would, no pressure on anybody. But I mean, from a mindset, it can be really lonely to be, a one person business as well, because you don't have a team to build you back up again. So, when I was, there's been times during COVID where I fell down and, one of my team members, told me that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or that, next week actually looked a lot better than I had in my head. And, sometimes you need that reality check. So, I mean, I would recommend surrounding yourself with other people and other people who have a positive mindset. So, Pimento is a great place for that, but also joining other networks so that you have people to talk to, and you have other friends, and, you can, when you're feeling, when you need to pick me up, that you have people who can pick you up and can tell you, oh, it's not as bad as you actually think it is, or have you tried this, have you tried that, and give you lots of ideas and suggestions. And that way it's easy when you're feeling overwhelmed to not be able to see solutions, but other people often help, point you in the right direction or just give you an idea, and then you've got a starting point. So yeah, don't lose that optimism and that enthusiasm for what you do, and to surround yourself by people who can build you up if you're feeling down.
Thank you. And 30 seconds, if I may, Sammy, your thoughts for kind of the one man, one woman bands. Obviously, it's tough.
I think stress is usually rooted in a distortion of perspective, and it's very easy as a business owner to make the business everything in life and work everything in life. And the truth is, it's not. I mean, if you're going to be, if you really put things into perspective, it's something we spend a lot of time doing. But I think research shows that it's the one thing nobody talks about on their deathbed. You know, what they did at work and how, you know. I personally, you know, we all have tragedies. I had a personal loss earlier, right in March, actually. I've learned over the years that I cannot spend all my time thinking about work and worrying about work and worrying about the people in work. So I keep myself very, very busy. I've got a lot of hobbies. I do a lot of different things, from sport and mountain biking and cars and all sorts of motorcycles and all sorts of things. And I think for me, that really keeps me sane. So I suppose my wife says that it basically it's me clinging on to being a man-child. But ultimately, I find that distracting myself with other things that I find fun and enjoyable, and I include my family and my kids and everything else in that, is really important, because otherwise you just consume yourself in worry over problems that you very often can't solve at that time. And you tend to build the outcomes, and I think this is the cause of a lot of people's stress, is that they worry that the outcome is far bigger than what the outcome would be. My dad said to me before he passed, he said, it doesn't matter if you go bust for £10 or you go bust for £10 million, you still go bust and life goes on. You pick yourself up and you go on. It's business and it's work. And there is a dollop of luck in that as well. But if you've got a healthy interest in the world around you, you do other things, then you've always got something else to enjoy and to take your mind off it. So for me, it's that, I think, and red wine.
And red wine, absolutely. Yeah, I relate very much to the man-child too. Listen, I wanted to thank all three of you for your contribution today. It's been a really, really enjoyable discussion, and thank you everyone for joining. Three things I just wanted to mention. One, please, for those people that you know in the industry perhaps have lost their jobs, don't forget we now have a fantastic outplacement service. We did a pilot yesterday. It went very, very well, and we were able to help 3 or 4 people who otherwise wouldn't have benefited, and hopefully we'll help them find a job back in the industry as soon as possible. Other thing to say is that we'll be launching the annual membership survey. It will be launched tomorrow. It's been managed and curated and by the wonderful Annabelle at Question and Retain. You'll get an email from me later on today just explaining what that's about. It will take you 5 minutes to complete. It's really, really important that we get you to complete these, because only can we become the network you want us to be if we get your feedback. So it's very, very important. If anyone, by the way, who's on this call who doesn't know anything about Pimento, is interested to know a little bit more about what we do, what membership's all about, then please do drop me a line at stephen.ph.knight@pimento.co.uk. And also, final notice, our next 5 p.m. club, these are our interactive networking events. They're a lot of fun. You have to bring your own wine at the moment, unfortunately. On the 26th of November at 5 p.m. And if you'd like a guest invite, again, send me an email at stephen.knight@pimento.co.uk. Thank you once again. Have a tremendously exciting day. Stay positive, stay healthy, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.